And hallelujah! A leg spinner has bowled his side to victory with a second innings 7-wicket haul. Man, I've been waiting 10 years and 3 months to say that, ever since Anil Kumble took 7 against Pakistan in the Kolkata Test of 2005. Yasir Shah took 7 for 76 as Sri Lanka slogged and swished their way to oblivion in Galle. What a year this has been for leggies so far. Devendra Bishu almost bowled Australia out in Dominica. Adil Rashid has finally been allowed to actually play for England. He even picked up some wickets in ODIs. Imran Tahir had a good World Cup. Even Scott Borthwick took a forfer for Durham the other day. Truly one of the signs of impending apocalypse. Great news for cricket. Ian Salisbury, you did not suffer in vain. Bangladesh have taken an unassailable 2-0 lead in the ODI series with the MS Dhoni All-Stars, as India seem to be called when they lose. Further questions have been asked as to whether MS Dhoni will step down from his role as MS Dhoni. But can Indian cricket find someone else to be MS Dhoni who doesn't have quite so much experience of being MS Dhoni as MS Dhoni does? As a result of the results, India have now officially been relegated from the big three. Bangladesh replace them. They will now play 12 tests, home and away, against England and Australia every year for the next 2 decades. In other cricket news, we have got a new teleprompter for filming this show, which should make everything go smoothlier. Go what yourself, San Diego? Australia have arrived in England, still without a win, and it's nearly July. Bradman will be laughing in their faces. Not very impressive so far, I'd say. They come here after beating West Indies, who, as you may recall, were described as mediocre by incoming ECB kahuna Colin Graves before England's tour there. Not sure quite what Graves would say about the West Indies' first batting efforts of the post-Chanda Paul era. Mediocre might be considered so wildly complimentary as to almost constitute making a pass at them. In fact, calling the West Indies mediocre on the evidence of this last series is basically asking Rajendra Chandrika out on a date. England, meanwhile, have won the Ashes, or would have done had they been awarded for the ODI series against New Zealand, as rightly they should have been. That is all the news.
So, Doc, the pink ball in Test cricket? I imagine that must be tweaking your whiskers.
Frederick, you and I may be mortal enemies, sworn to destroy each other in this realm or the next, but we must fight together to rid the universe of the scourge of the pink cricket ball.
Sorry, Doc, but I can't do that. Things move on. I remember the old days when you used to bat with a bat made out of a pterodactyl's leg bone and I bowled using the eye of an abnormally large cat.
They're called lions, Frederick. But the ball has always been red. Always has, always should be. Ever since Eve tried to get that cricket ball down out of that tree and accidentally picked an apple instead. Red cricket balls. Otherwise, I tell you, there will be anarchy on the streets.
Are you seriously telling me, Doc, that you would not have played if the balls had been pink?
Definitely not. Unless the money was right.
I thought you were supposed to be an amateur.
Man's got to eat.
Evidently.
The news cricket has been waiting for. The pink ball is ready. I repeat, the pink ball is ready. Actually, I think that might have been a Cold War nuclear code. I could just have activated some Soviet sleeper cells. Let's just press on. Here it is. I mean, this one's a bit squidgy. I don't know how that's going to work. But after years of waiting, finally, the pink ball is ready for day-night Test cricket, kind of.
There are Test fans out there who are going to point to tradition as a reason for not having day-night tests. Of course, there are Test fans that point to tradition for pretty much any reasons. But let's look at traditionally. We didn't actually have whopping great lights outside cricket grounds. And we also didn't have that, you know what it is, electricity. That's what we didn't have. And let's look at what Test cricket has actually been through all the hundreds and thousands of years that we've ever had. Tests have been played...
Thousands?
Hundreds of thousands.
Okay, good. Stonehenge. Set of stumps.
Tests have been played from 3 days through to timeless. New balls have been taken from 55 overs or at 200 runs. We've had overs that have been 4, 5, 6 and 8 balls long.
And 1 ball long when Alan Mullally was bowling for England. Well, 1 reachable ball long anyway.
With special Mullally rules. No balls were once on the back foot. The ball used to be bigger. The stumps used to be smaller. And the bats are now, I don't know, bloody ginormous. It's been played.
Technically,
yeah, that's a technical term.
Yeah.
It's been played on matting wickets and uncovered wickets, despite just normal wickets. You know, not to mention that we now use thermal imaging and rocket machines to give umpiring decisions. Although not in every country.
Not in every. And Frank Chester used to do the same after the war. He had a bionic shoulder as a result of his wartime injury. Anyway, also they used trousers that could have been used to embalm an elephant, and in fact were on one occasion, I believe, on Plum Warner's famous MCC tour of India back in, I believe, 1904-05.
I remember that well. If we want to keep cricket traditional, why don't we bring back class restrictions for English captains?
Have they gone?
It's a fair point. Race restrictions for West Indies captains. We can just stop playing Sri Lanka altogether, and most importantly, we should keep the South African cricket team as white as possible. And we should get rid of women as well. No women playing Test cricket, like the traditional old days that we all like.
Cricket has always been a hotbed of scientific innovation, as you would expect from humankind's greatest ever creation. The relationship between cricket and science technology dates back to when gravity, wood, the concept of spheres and the innate human desire to stand in a field all day doing not very much combined to help create cricket. Since then, where cricket has gone, so technology has followed. When the world had a problem with things going through other things they weren't supposed to be going through, cricket invented the middle stump, the first known example of humanity closing a legal loophole, and in a way, the forerunner of all justice. When the world had had enough of everything bumping along the ground, cricket legalised overarm bowling. Within 40 years, the Wright brothers had invented aeroplanes, and just 105 years later, Neil Armstrong trotted down the pavilion steps to open the batting against Moon CC. When people tired of suffering needless injuries, cricket invented the box. Now we have seatbelts and airbags. Middlesex and England interwar legend Patsy Hendren made a special helmet made out of caps in the 1930s. Not only did this lead, in just a 45-year blink of an eye, to the cricket helmet, but it also led, in 1945, to the formation of the United Nations. We had Dennis Lilly's aluminium bat. If bats didn't need to be made of wood, then, thought our species, what about other traditionally wooden things? Like chopping boards, longboats, catapults, cars, acting and intercontinental ballistic missiles. We had Hansi Cronje's earpiece to receive instructions from Coach Bob Woolmer in the dressing room, or to receive instructions from, oh, it doesn't matter, it was ages ago. And now, everyone has earpieces, not just international cricket captains, even people just walking down the street or pointing at a shop. And now, the pink ball. The greatest invention since the orange ball.
Patsy Hendren, from what I understand from having read it, he put like a carp over the top of his head to protect himself from the short ball.
Are you sure it didn't say cap?
But Andy, what about your precious stats? Why don't you tell us about your precious little stats? How will they change?
Well, Jared, it's a very, very important point. Various people have complained that the pink ball and day-night cricket will invalidate statistics. Think of the stats fans. Won't somebody please think of the stats fans? It's going to be a tough time for us. But, you know, stats are always changing. Look at one-day international stats. They are changing so fast that there's no point comparing a match that's happening today with a game that happened, say, even 10 years ago. There's barely even any point comparing a match happening now from one that happened 3 months ago, particularly not if England are playing. In fact, the game's changing so fast that you can be watching a game and you think, oh, I wonder how this compares with the last over I watched. The game's already moved on. That is how fast one-day cricket is evolving. Late 19th century Surrey and England statistical dreamboat George Lohman famously took 112 wickets in 18 tests at an average of, this guy doesn't need me to tell him, 10.75. Tidy figures in anyone's book, apart perhaps from Mustafizur Rahman of Bangladesh, who probably thinks average of 10.75, a bit loose. Lohman's 21st century successor as England's record wicket taker, James Anderson, averages 29.4. But who would you want in your team for the first test in July? Anderson, obviously, because Lohman's been dead for over 100 years. And
Quite a long time.
He's showing no real signs of becoming less dead in time for the Cardiff Test. It's a simple choice. You don't need to be a professional selector. Look, the point is, even Glenn McGrath averaged 21.6. That's twice what Lohman averaged, or against or against Mike Atherton, he averaged 1.38. But that's not the point as a ballpark figure. The point is, yes, Lohman was clearly good, very, very good, but he also took 35 wickets at an average of 5 in a series against South Africa when they were still using toy bats and picking people to play who just happened to be walking their dog across the outfield.
I think actually, if you look at it, they actually picked a few dogs as well.
They did. I mean, that barely ever happens in Test matches now. I believe Darren Pattinson and Scott Borthwick were the last two examples of that.
Can't believe you made a Darren Pattinson joke.
Well, and two Scott Borthwick jokes in one joke. Is that too many? Well, he's a very good cricketer. But, anyway, it was a bit or not. Anyway, the point is, all stats are a mixture of relevance, irrelevance, and totally irrelevant. Do we need different stats for when there were uncovered pitches?
Yes.
Or no helmets?
No.
Or different leg side fielding
Yes.
rules? Or when all bowlers had really genuinely, frighteningly intimidating moustaches?
Sure.
Or when batsmen were, terrified of dying of tetanus if they got hit by a poisoned ball? We don't need those. No! We just need to look at those numbers and say, hello, Mr. Stat. I am Dr. Interpretator. Now pop your decimal points off and let's have a look at you.
Here is a steep riser for you on a flat wicket. The pink ball is not very good. It's just not.
Why are you telling me this now?
It goes soft. This one's plastic, so it was sort of born soft. It doesn't swing after a few overs. Fielders, oddly the crowd as well, say that they can't see it. It doesn't last the full 80 overs. It's just not great. Will it change the game? Yes. Will it change the game more between playing at the SSC compared to the WACA? Probably a little. They can't use red because red is impossible to see at night, and the white ones just don't last. So they have to try something, and they've tried whatever this is.
But with current balls, especially kookaburra balls, people don't like
Kookaburra.
the kookaburra balls. They don't seem to like them. There's always complaints about the ball. But is it worse than the kookaburra ball that goes soft after about halfway down the first delivery and then doesn't do a lot? Now, Jared, look, I'm not an expert, but do you not think having a ball that works is quite an important part of a test match? Do you not think cricket thought, yeah, let's sort the ball out? Oh, no, hang on, first we've got to choreograph the dance routines for when a 2020 batting team scores a leg by. Is the ball not important, the single most important piece of technology in a cricket game?
And just imagine, Andy, for a minute, that cricket actually had this governing body, for instance, that made billions of dollars through TV rights.
I'm trying. No.
And with that money, with that billions of dollars that they made, they would spend years, maybe even decades, with scientists and ball manufacturers from around the globe in different conditions, in different places, making a ball as near perfect as they possibly could before going ahead with it. Or they could let, other organisations like the MCC and Cricket Australia spend a little bit of money with it, bugger around with it a little bit, and then essentially they could come up with what is a soft, invisible item.
That seems a slightly odd way to go about things, I'll give you that.
Soft and invisible. Like my heart.
Like my career.
So, Doc, England have apparently reinvented ODI cricket.
Testify, brother. Ain't that the sweet, sweet truth?
Not entirely. Looks to me like you've just started playing it the way other countries have been playing it for years.
Frederick, you need a little history lesson, my friend. This was in many ways the first time England have ever played ODI cricket. Yes, we've had occasional successes in the ODI game, but that was mostly by playing Test cricket, just for one day. And thusly, by winning this series against New Zealand, we have shown the world that, had we played ODI cricket before this, we would have conquered the cricketing world with our remorselessly devastating and spiritually merciless attacking cricket, had we so chosen to do.
Sure, but that doesn't answer why England hadn't played ODI cricket before this month.
Tradition, Frederick. It still means something to some people.
This week, England invented ODI cricket. Take us through that, Andy.
Probably the greatest moment in the history of British civilization. England have reinvented the ODI game, or at least they've stopped trying to de-invent the ODI game as they were in the World Cup. Why did they not play like this in the World Cup? That's the big question. Jared, answers on a postcard to the ECB, number 1, Cricket Street, London, please. And it can be a pretty small postcard, because there are no reasons why England did not play like this in the World Cup. No good ones, anyway. And Stephen Finn actually said they did try to play like this in the World Cup.
Makes it worse.
I think it does make it worse. Maybe it makes it slightly better. I'm not sure. There's no point crying over spilt milk, the spilt mouldy curdled milk. Let's instead enjoy the flaming mozzarella it has turned into in this record-clouting prize pizza of a one-day series.
And let us not forget Bangladesh, Andy. Is it possible right at the moment that England and Bangladesh are the 2 best ODI sides in the world?
Yes. No. But nearly. Near enough.
I mean, they're obviously not, but the point does stand that Mustafizur Rahman has won more battles with India than the Chinese and Pakistan governments probably combined in this one ODI series. His left-arm cutters took 11 wickets in 2 games, and some experts, Andy, already comparing him to Lancastrian Sydney Barnes. Is he better than Sid Barnes? Is he better than Joel Garner? Is he better than Ajit Agarkar? A cricket world waits and watches.
Well, Mustafizur now has as many ODI 5-4s as Ian Botham, Malcolm Marshall, Ravi Ashwin, Sean Tate, Shakib Al Hassan, Bob Willis, Harsha Bogle, Shane Ward, Bertie the Magic Schnitzel, and Zahir Khan put together! That is the first fact of the show.
One thing is for sure, Bangladesh superpower.
Well, and if they keep scheduling their test matches for the monsoon season, they will never lose a cricket match again.
Bangladesh superpower.